What is up, everyone? Welcome into the NFL Astrology, aka the Astrology Sports Central. My name is Gracey, and I am your host today. We are starting off on this Sunday morning with plenty to say, plenty to do, plenty to talk about. We are going to be covering the Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. You'll have to bear with me. I do still call them San Diego. Probably more offensive to them than it is to me. So we are going to be talking about that a little bit. I'm going to take a quick, promise you, real quick break just to test audio and make sure everything is working. And then I'll be right back. All right, we're back and everything works. Thank God. We did it, you guys. Stream one with everything working. Once again, my name is Gracey. I am with Northern Astrology, and you might have seen my work on the news. You could have seen it through my website, northernastrology.com. You could have seen it through social media platforms. I am forever expanding my understanding of reach and how I can get to certain people and where platforms are really taking off. And lately, I think YouTube has been pretty much my favorite with all the advancements in the community, as well as the new features that YouTube is getting. I'm super geeked. You could also be watching this on Twitter, aka X. One day we'll just have one name for everything. It'll be like, did you see me on TV? Wonderful. But today's chart, we are going to be looking at the Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. I am not going to call them San Diego, I promise. But, you know, part of looking at these charts without my co-host will be getting to hear from her a little bit later on. So if you're missing Dr. Jess today, so am I. Okay, so am I. There's a lot of things going on in this world, and especially when you have family, and especially when you have a busy life outside of the internet and outside of memes, things happen. So I will be the live main host today, and we will be phoning in with Jess and a special guest that I'm really excited about joining the show. So for Astrology Sports Central, here we are. Last week was a very fun show. We kept it a little bit shorter than usual, which is fine because I think sometimes um, we need shorter conversations. Two Gemini luminaries getting into a conversation about anything that they've been researching is a terrifying trap. You just don't know how long it's going to go. So with us, we're definitely riding the wave of the momentum of having undefeated results so far. Like, I'm pretty geeked about that. I know Jess would be too if she was here live with me at the moment. But if you are just tuning in, Jess will be phoning in today with her pre-recorded prediction. So we're going to get to that in a minute. And I'm going to make sure that we have everything up and ready to go for the stream. But the Chiefs are taking on the Chargers today for the first AFC West matchup of the season, and I'm super pumped about it. So I'm going to try and reel down the chart reading to like an hour. No, I'm kidding. As always, we are going to be reading from this terribly destroyed book I have. I hope you guys are excited for me and my 360 Degrees of Wisdom book with Linda Hill. We're going to be diving into the symbols of the game as well as just like some key planets to look for. Some of you may have seen my KSHB 41 interview with Mackenzie Nelson the last week, and you might be tuning in for the first time. I will be talking a lot about astrology, and I will be obviously this is a sports astrology show, and I will be jumping around to references you may not understand. Okay, so for those of you that may not understand what I am talking about, I do have a very convenient free 101 guide to astrology on my website. So you can click on, if you're on YouTube, you can go to my about page and find all my links with my website on there too. And then you can go to the library, and I have a free 101 astrology book. And if you're watching this on Twitter, you can go to my profile and click on the link tree. I don't think you can be watching this on Instagram yet. I haven't figured out that technology, but I do see it's an option. So I'm like, this could be really fun streaming to all of the platforms that I enjoy, like YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, and none of the platforms that I don't. So kind of nice that we have that option. But yeah, like I said, I'll be reading from this book, 360 Degrees of Wisdom by Linda Hill. It is all about the Sabian symbols. I use them extensively in my work. If you are not familiar with my work, I specialize in degrees, and it's not just degree theory or any one kind of, it's like my own unique style of astrology, which can kind of be like very frustrating to understand when I start going at rapid paces. So I'm going to try my best not to do that today. What I love about having Jess here is like our banter and our back and forth is so fun and it's so balanced. So I will try to not spiral into degrees and symbols and only being able to focus on that. I'm going to be talking about the aspects and a lot of the synastry within the game. But within the two teams, like we've got two teams here. It's not just the game chart. So I will go ahead and pull that up. We're going to be covering the score predictions as well as key players to watch at the very end of this broadcast. If you are not interested in watching all the way to the end, I am a Chiefs homer and incredibly biased when it comes to any sort of Chiefs information. So I will always tell you that they're going to win. Like, I'm just going to flat out let you know that I very rarely will I mention that the Chiefs have less of a chance. Very rarely will I go out on a limb and be like, well, they're terrible. And it's not because I'm like number one homer, but it is because they're really good. And it's a good that I can't really describe properly without wasting a lot of time trying to describe physics and quantum mechanics and how those things work, because Patrick Mahomes defies all those. So when you're looking at someone and their talent, you have to look at the whole perspective. And that's kind of what I'm doing with looking at the degrees and the planets at those degrees for the game chart. So I will get into that instead of just rambling on about how we have the world's greatest quarterback. Because I think that's obvious. I think that's obvious after a while. You guys don't always have to hear me go off about how much I love the Chiefs. We can talk about other things like how much I love this chart for the game. We are looking at the Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. For those of you who are just tuning in, my name is Gracey, and I have deemed myself a sports astrologer. There we go, a sports astrologer. And because of that, because of my self-appointed title and the diving that I do into these game charts and into sports in general with astrology, I think it's really cool to share that knowledge. And I think if we are able to share our process, our insight, and it can help one person get better at what they do, whether it's sports betting or astrology. You know, you could be a gambling aficionado and simply want to learn astrology so you can place better and more accurate bets. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to judge what people do with astrology. The only way that you can use astrology wrong is if you use it to manipulate and control others. This is not a fearful art form. You know, there is a lot of tension and a lot of energy in the sky at the moment, seeking justice, seeking balance, seeking alignment. And it might be feeling like you guys are feeling the, I guess, the weighing of sorts. You know, there's a lot of people that have been putting in work this year with the calendar year starting in March, and a lot of people reaping the rewards around the fall equinox that we just had on September 22nd. So if you guys don't know about my magazine that I have publishing around the seasons, you can learn more about protecting your energy, preserving your energy, and working with your energy through the seasons with the Northern magazine. But for now, we are going to jump into this game chart that I have loaded up. As you can see, we have the 0 degree Capricorn rising. This is not whole sign. This is Placidus. So do with that what you will. You know, when we look at the 0 sign, or the 0 degree, the zero sign. Welcome into Northern Astrology. I have rewritten astrology, and now there is a 0 house. No, that is not the case. Usually the reason I wanted to specify it's not whole sign is that when you have a house starting at 0 degrees, it's usually a whole sign chart, and all the houses will start at 0. But as you can see, if you go around, I don't know why I'm pointing to the screen like you guys can see this. I do this every week. But if you go around the wheel, and I'm still going to point apparently, there's the arrow to where 9 o'clock on a traditional analog, not analog, a traditional clock would be. The 0 degrees with the little squiggly lines underneath, and then the left arrow. There is quite a mix of aspects going on in the center. As you can see, it's not the clean center that the tri-wheels usually are, or the synastry usually is. So we are going to be seeing quite a jumbled mess in the middle there. That is because we have a lot of aspects today. Yay. But kicking off the chart, once again, the 0, 0, and then the degree sign with the Capricorn sign underneath with the left arrow in between the 12 and the 1 on the inner ring. That is what's known as the rising sign, ladies and gentlemen. So we are looking at a 0 degree Capricorn rising sign. So when we are looking towards 0 degrees in astrology, we are technically looking at the 30th degree of the following sign. I know this is a lot. It's a lot of math for before noon, my time. It's still 11:44 a.m. and we are looking at math. We are looking at the 0 degree of Capricorn, and like I said, we do have to go back to the 30th degree of Sagittarius because we go 1 through 30 in the Sabian symbols, and then with degree theory, the exact degree is very important. So once again, I am combining this, but having the Jupiter-ruled sign of Sagittarius as well as a Saturn-ruled sign of Capricorn. Fun fact, the last decan of Sagittarius ruled by Saturn, so it's kind of like a segue into that Capricorn energy. So what we're looking at right now is Saturn-ruled chart, okay? Why is this important? Well, we have to find the ruler of the chart to kind of feel today's energy. And when we had a Saturn-ruled chart earlier this year, I believe it was the 15th game, it was a Capricorn rising, I think it's 6 degrees. That was a game that Jess and I both talked about broken bones. Mostly because Capricorn rules the skin and bones in astrology. So Capricorns take care of your skin and your bones, drink lots of calcium, and it gets lots of moisture on your skin. I know that sounds like Hannibal Lecter, but we can move on from that reference. Get lotion on. Wear lotion and drink water and hydrate yourself and get your calcium. That's my advice to Capricorns going into the winter months. For Capricorn rising, like I said, we go to the ruling planet of Capricorn, which is Saturn, and we go to Saturn retrograde in the 2nd house in Pisces. So if you can see the inner wheel, the very inner wheel with the jumbled lines in the middle of this strange looking chart to all of those that do not read astrology charts every day like I do. You're going to see a little, like almost like a cross and then a squiggly line underneath it with 2 little blue lines down there, and with the 2, if you look at the 2nd house, there's Saturn and then the symbol of Pisces in there as well. At 14 degrees Saturn, that is right at the end of the 2nd house. And so that's going to be today's chart ruler. Very interesting to say the least when we look at Pisces Saturn. This is a degree that we have visited multiple times this year already. So, this is a degree that we're just kind of revisiting as a collective. This degree is represented in the Sabian symbols. 14 degrees would be the karmic degree and the exact degree. And it is a woman wrapped in fox fur. So I'm going to try to hold this up so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. Yeah, there's, I don't know if you can really see that. I do have some pretty solid lighting in here. So thank God you can see my beautiful face. Well, not so great for reading pages off a book that I randomly show up and get blinded by the light. But the woman wrapped in fox fur is the karmic degree of Saturn. The truth degree, which is the rounded up degree, which is where you look to find the truth to this Sabian symbol. And the degree is represented by an officer drilling his men in a simulated attack. And then we see the solution degree, which is going to be 16 degrees Pisces, which is represented in the Sabian symbols as in a quiet moment, a creative individual experiences the flow of inspiration. So, with that being said, how do you apply these three things to the chart ruler of today's game? It might be a little far-fetched, and welcome into having a Pisces Mercury. I deal with the abstract visual all the time. So a woman wrapped in fox fur, you might see somebody wearing fur today. You might see somebody wearing faux fur today. It might be a controversy, who knows? You may have to kind of like, there's going to be a woman that radiates grace and wealth and intelligence apparently at this game, which I don't think we have to look too far. I don't know why fur would be a thing because it's LA, but maybe it's like a decorative jacket. These things are not always literal, but it's very much, I'll read you the commentary of this degree. The fox fur carries the feeling of protection being given through the use of wit, tact, diplomacy, glamour, and intellect. There is an aura of street smarts about the woman wrapped in fox fur, like she could get out of any situation that she chooses. Foxes in astrology are ruled by Mercury, so it's always fun to kind of see how that plays out here. Also, this is a Taurus ruled degree, and it's in the second house, which is ruled traditionally by Taurus. So that'll be interesting to watch. I don't know if it's going to be like a stubborn energy with women at the game today. This is in LA. This is not in Kansas City, so I have no idea who will be attending. And once again, I do not pay attention to injury reports, news, updates, really anything until after the game's done. It's not like I'm watching SportsCenter the whole week leading up to this and be like, what should I tell everyone? And then going into the continuance of the symbol breakdown, the animal magnetism and attraction, cloaks, having class and money, grace and composure. Something about grace and composure. I don't know if someone's going to be tested today with someone in the stadium that they weren't expecting, or if this is going to be like a showdown of sorts in the stadium, then we just don't know about it. But we get to the 15 degrees of Pisces, which is the truth to today's chart ruler, and it is an officer drilling his men in a simulated attack, which sounds ridiculously complicated and messy to begin with. But it looks like this is how it's described. And I love Linda Hill. If you guys haven't read the article where I got to interview Linda Hill, the author of this incredible book, 360 Degrees of Wisdom, I got to do that in my Northern magazine, and I'm super pumped about it. Part of like her book breakdown of degree by degree is giving a commentary on how she interprets this degree, and it also plays a part into how I interpret it. But I also use degree theory with these. So anyways, an officer drilling his men in a simulated attack. Sometimes in life, the danger of things is overstated, exaggerated, and overestimated, and it looks like all hell is going to break loose at any minute. However, there is wisdom in practicing being on the alert to reduce the chance of error or failure when a real attack comes along. Putting on a show of strength in order to put off threats from the outside can help promote feelings of safety and solidarity. Yeah, I would say that a football game, you should probably protect yourself from threats. Then we have the solution degree to this Pisces Saturn at 14 degrees. And this is going to be represented by, in a quiet moment, a creative individual experiences the flow of inspiration. I feel like we're going to see a lot of showmanship, a lot of sudden changes in game tempo, especially with Uranus in the 5th house, even though it is retrograde. We have these planets in these houses to make that Saturn kind of seems like maybe this game will be better for people who bet responsibly. I saw online, just because I guess I see things now for Chiefs games, where people were complaining about Patrick Mahomes dropping back and losing yardage on last week's game because it fucked up their bets. I want you guys to remember that athletes do not care about your prop bets. They do not care about your parlays. They do not care. Front offices don't care. No one really cares except you, right? So when we look at the gambling side of things, I'm like, no one cares about your sports betting. But it's just like no one cares about your fantasy team, and no one cares about your golf game. There's things that you can just keep to yourself, or you can just not talk about because you found something else to talk about, like sports astrology. Instead of your golf game. That'd be great if I could get all the men that talk about their fantasy football team nonstop to talk about astrology instead. I do feel like there's like the showmanship and the decorations, maybe the outfits are ridiculous. There's very much diplomacy being shown on the Chiefs and the Chargers side. But there's a lot of practice that's been put in behind closed doors. There's a lot of practice about being composed. There's a lot of composure behind closed doors that is happening here that we're just not seeing. And then, don't let Patrick Mahomes have a quiet moment of inspiration, because he will simply disrupt everything that has anything to do with this game. And you're really going to see a lot of what the Kansas City Chiefs are made of. And also, when we get into Jess and Trevor's breakdown of the Chargers, I'm sure they'll let us know as well. When we see the Capricorn rising with Ceres and Pluto in the first house, it makes me think this is a very much a transformative game. Of course, it's going to be, but it's like transformative, and maybe like healed bones are going to be playing a factor into here, or something about like somebody coming back from maybe injury. The second house, ruled by Aquarius, is going to feel a little bit aloof and distant with especially with the gambling side of things. Maybe money is a little bit all over the place for today. Then we get into the third house, where Neptune and the North Node are right there in the last degrees of Pisces and the first degrees of Aries. So this mentally might feel like a couple of rebirths and deaths in the same game, with Neptune kind of pulling those rose-colored glasses over the Chiefs or over the Chargers, with the Chargers being at home and, a lot of Mars-ruled energy with that home team. There is going to be a lot of aggression today. This is a rivalry, whether you believe it or not. The AFC West in general is young and it's restless. So why not see the best of the best quarterbacks team up today and kind of show that off in their greatest capacity, which is being very aggressive in that. Chiron and Aries in the fourth house. That's kind of what I'm seeing there, is the home team a lot more aggressive, especially with the mental part of the game. We go into the fifth house, Uranus, where it seems to be where it could be back and forth with the creative style and flow of the game today, especially with the referees. Whenever you see the fifth house, it always reminds me of referees. The fifth house and 11th house axis is very much like referees versus teams. Then we go into the sixth house, which is ruled by Mercury and Gemini, that 8 degrees of Gemini. And then we have Jupiter and Gemini nestled in there. So there will be a boost in those that have Gemini placements, and especially those that have any sort of Gemini, like inner planet placements, like Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, all those. Mostly because Gemini rules the hands, and I feel like people that have those placements are going to have great games, like catching wise. Also, this is a time to revisit any dropped ball mistakes that have happened in the past few games. This is a good time to correct things. We see Mars in the seventh house. Mars is once again what we look for with a lot of athletes, not necessarily, the only thing that we look at with athletes, but Mars does rule competitive sports and competitive nature. It is that driver. It is that planet that really sticks out to push through a lot of the things. Mercury is another planet. I look at Mars, Mercury, and Saturn as the first three things for most athlete charts, just because those give me a really good glimpse of like who they are as a person. We see the games Vertex and Leo. So Leos, I feel like you're going to have a pretty good game today. Virgos are going to be quite emotional with that Moon and Vesta in Virgo. The Moon is in the 8th house of the game today, so that should be pretty interesting. We do see that here in the 9th house, which is what we usually look to for the traveling team. That being ruled by Virgo and Mercury is going to be pretty strong today, because it is Patrick Mahomes' Mercury return. So on the away team, he is going through a Mercury return and kind of gets that boost from Mercury with his Libra placements. To be fair, there is also the South Node there, right, with Mercury. So it's not all shiny, bubbly joy. And, then you get over just 1 degree further and there is the sun. So that being said, Travis Kelce's Mars and Sun conjunction in Libra are getting a little bit more boosted today. So hopefully we can see him go off with all the criticism, I guess, he's been facing. It's kind of crazy. Wasn't really aware that people thought the greatest tight end of all time with plenty of time left in his career should retire because they think he's not playing enough. Whatever, not really concerned with what other people think, nor should you be. And you got to keep moving forward. And with Libra being ruled by Venus, and then we go and see the Venus ruled MC of the game with Venus also in the 10th house, we are seeing some boost to Venusian signs today. So Taurus and Libra, you guys are getting a little spicy. Some spicy Venus energy is ruling you guys, so it'll be interesting to watch. And then we're going over to the 11th house where the part of fortune is at 28 degrees Scorpio. So once again, Leo and Scorpio energy, I feel like will be pretty large. I'd have no idea what I was trying to say there. No idea whatsoever. So that part of fortune in the 11th house, and then of course Palace is right there. In the 11th house, this is going to be a very defensive game, both physically and mentally. One great thing that we have in the 12th house today is I don't think this game is going to be as stressful. It is going to have an abundance of back and forth, an abundance of twists and turns. I don't feel like this game is going to be as incredibly insane as the last couple, but I'm not sure. I can't say that for sure, just because when you have a Jupiter ruled 12th house and Jupiter is in Gemini, that is the trickster sign. So anytime that we have anything to do with Gemini in a chart, that is the chart that we need to remember that both things can exist at once. I mean, that's true with all of astrology. You look at most astrology charts and you realize that both things can exist at once, and it's kind of cool. It's kind of the exciting part of sports astrology is we get to see that all outcomes can exist at once. So like I said, Capricorn rising and Saturn to rule the chart. So why don't we switch gears a little bit, and I will put down my book because I've been like dying to open it. And we are going to go ahead and hear from Jess, Dr. Jess, and our special guest. Without further ado, the Aquarius, they're going to be breaking down the flow of the game today, as well as a little bit about the opponent. So without further ado, here is Jess and the special guest, the Aquarius, aka Trevor.
Hi everyone, it's me, Jess, and this is Trev the Aquarian.
Hey everybody.
He's the one who constantly has sports on our television, and so I am generally interested in this. And today we are going to give a very brief 10-minute breakdown of what we think is going to happen with this game. From my perspective, I'm playing with both tarot and astrology, and from his perspective, it's actually
sports.
So let's dive right in. First and foremost, there's a lot going on here. Don't be unafraid. Be not afraid. We're going to talk about what this is. The innermost wheel is the actual game chart. I'm sure you've seen it in some capacity, or you will shortly with Gracey. The next wheel is the Chargers, based on the August 14th, 1959 date, which I have feelings about. So we'll talk about that in a moment. The third wheel is the Chiefs chart. We know that. We've been looking at it pretty frequently. And the outermost wheel is actually the LA Chargers' first game, the first preseason game. So the first time they were a team on a field. And it was August 6th, 1960. Now, the reason I chose to pull this chart as well is because I'm curious, but also because I think 7 teams actually have this August 14th, 1959 date. What is that telling us about an individual team if 7 teams have the same exact signature? Not much. So part of one of my side projects has been delineating from separate charts to see which holds up the best, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do now. But we are actually going to spend time with this innermost wheel first, because that is the game chart itself. And so what stands out to me is the ascendant is actually at 0 degrees in the sign of Capricorn, which means this second house, Saturn in Pisces, is the chart ruler. And there's a really beautiful exact trine between Saturn and Mars to the degree. And I think that this is quite lovely because Mars tends to struggle in the sign of Cancer. And so here we're getting a little bit of fortitude in the overall expression. It does seem to me like it might be another big game for kickers specifically. I'm looking at the Chiefs, Harrison, who happens to be a Cancer Sun person and who has been kind of standing out in the recent games. And more broadly, I keep an eye on all of the Cancer placements, especially Cancer Sun people. Beyond that, we're interested in the Libra placements. The midheaven is at 18 degrees in the sign of Libra. We see the sun in the sign of Libra. Mercury's in the sign of Libra. All of these are boding well for like actually getting acknowledgement, standing out in some way. I think that the fifth house is ruled by Taurus. We have Uranus there forming a close trine with Pluto. Unusual and surprising displays of power by the Taurus placement people. I'd also keep an eye out on the Scorpio placements, just this whole axis really, because Venus is also in the sign of Scorpio. Venus tends to bode well for people standing out, looking good, doing good. And finally, there might be some action with the Capricorn placements. I have not seen too many outstanding moments from Capricorns most recently in the games that I've been watching, but that first house ruled by Capricorn might be doing them pretty good. Let's see what else. Oh, finally, where the Libra placements are concerned, I'm especially focusing on 5 to 15 degrees or thereabouts, because any touchdown, any major play that's happening by Libra placements is coinciding pretty closely with the eclipse. So this is more fated moments, fated experiences. And so this feels a little bit more successful for them, especially because it is a solar eclipse. It does look to me like the home team is putting in a lot of work, and this is because the Lord of the third house, which is Jupiter, is in that sixth house of like effortful approach, intentionality. It might be kind of a little bit of a struggle bus moment, but they're putting forth the effort. We love to see it. That's the Chargers. The 12th house is actually also ruled by Jupiter. And so we're also getting this sense of like, okay, also the away team is like doing their best. So it may be a game worth watching, all things considered. Switching over to the specifics of each of the teams. So basically what I've been doing the past few weeks to track how each team will perform is by basically looking at the interplanetary aspects and assessing which team is most positively supported. The Chargers, I'm looking at two charts, again, that 1959 chart, as well as that 1960 chart, and the Chiefs we've been looking at every week, so we know what that's all about. As far as the Chiefs are concerned, we'll start there, very short and sweet. The transiting Sun and Mercury are forming a trine to the 0-degree Gemini Sun. It is pretty far apart, but nonetheless, they're still getting that support that has boded well for them across the past couple of weeks, even though they haven't been outstanding. There is an opposition with Jupiter and the transiting Sun and Moon. Less excellent, but I don't see hard aspects with Jupiter as particularly chaotic necessarily or negative. There is a very close Venus opposition as well, if I could find Venus. So yes, it is separating here as well, though. So that's kind of nice. That can put pressure on like them actually performing with a sense of finesse. They may be struggling in that space. Now, if we look at the Chargers 1959 chart, which again is that second wheel, they're getting a couple of squares to their moon from the transiting Sun and Mercury. Where is the moon? I don't know. 2 degrees in the sign of Capricorn. Saturn's also on the ascendant at the start of this game. Kind of gnarly, not here for it. They are getting some trines, sextiles from the game charts Sun and Mercury to their Mercury, if we are looking at this inner chart. And we love to see that. Quicker than is typical, more active, getting things done, follow through is nice. Now, if we look at the outer chart, right, this fourth wheel, I don't know. I don't know if this will map onto anything. I don't know if it matters, but I'm curious like a little cat. So, they're getting a couple of trines from the transiting Sun and Mercury as well, to their Mars, actually. Where's Mars? I don't know where Mars is. There. 3 degrees in the sign of Gemini. So that is really excellent because typically I want to see some support happening toward Mars where and when possible. If this chart holds up, it would look like the Chargers are performing a little bit more effectively, all things considered. If we are looking at this chart, the transiting Mars is at a close opposition with, no, it's not. I don't know. I'm getting very confused. The transiting Mars is 14 degrees in the sign of Cancer. Where is the Saturn? Boop. There it is. Okay, that makes more sense. There is a close opposition if we're following this outermost wheel between Mars and Saturn. So that's kind of like not being able to follow through, not being able to like land it whenever they're trying to land. So that could be a little bit of a challenge. Quickly looking at the other charts, there is a square between Mars and Jupiter for the Chiefs. Their Mars is square the transiting Jupiter. It hasn't stopped them up to this point. Will it stop them now? I kind of doubt it. They're not getting any other hard aspects from Mars. And the innermost wheel that we have for the Chargers, they are getting a couple of sextiles. So that's kind of nice to see as well. There's nothing outright where it's like, ooh, this is bad. But we are seeing some challenges to the 1959 chart with the transiting Sun and Mercury to their moon, especially. And we are seeing some challenges from the current transits to the outermost wheel Saturn. So there's more pressure being placed on the Chargers. That's what we're seeing in general. But they're not totally unsupported. If I'm looking at the transits and if I'm using the frameworks that I've been using up to this point, I think that the Chiefs will win. Okay, that's what I think. I actually didn't pull any numbers for this, but I also looked at the tarot cards, and I am really trying to reinvent the way that I look at the tarot cards because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun, and that's what matters. And basically what I wrote was I'm trying to de-identify like anything. I don't want to know about what team is what. So I was just looking at home versus away. And utilizing that, I said the home team wins, which I'm pretty sure is the Chargers. Is that true?
Mhm.
The home team wins, but it's not a total annihilation. Numbers to watch 42. And it feels like it might be a little bit of a nail biter and exciting to watch. So the transits are, in my opinion, are saying the Chiefs. My tarot cards are saying the Chargers, but we're still figuring out how that works. Yeah, and all things considered, I think it's a fun game to watch, and we'll just see how it shakes out. Will it be the tarot cards that win? Will it be the transits? I don't really know. I'm also curious to see which charts actually hold up. Trevor?
Yeah. It's just it's so impressive seeing you break down those charts like that. But so guys, the Chargers have a new head coach this year, Jim
Okay.
Harbaugh. He's big on offensive and defensive line. He wants to have the best in those two categories.
Okay.
And he's coming up short this week because his best defensive lineman and his two offensive tackles on the offensive end are both injured. All three of those players are out this week.
And who is this for?
This is for the Chargers. The
Okay, so they're not
Chargers.
going to look good.
Three of the very important players are out, and also Derwin James. I don't know if you guys remember this as Kansas City fans, but either last season or 2 seasons ago, Derwin James did like a WWE move on Travis Kelce. So they've got a little rivalry going between them two.
Okay.
But Derwin James is suspended this week. So like 4 out of the top 10 Chargers players are all injured this week or not able to play because of suspension. And there's only one Chiefs player that's on the injury reserve this week.
Who is?
Defensive end who is not one of their top players.
Okay. What's his
he
name?
had 6.5 sacks last year. Dana, he's a defensive end on the Chiefs is his position, but he had 6.5 sacks last year or something like that. But he's not a big contributor to their team. Like they have players that are going to fill in behind him and do well. So it's not going to be a big loss for them to be missing that player. But just Kansas City's coming in pretty much full strength. And the Chargers are their starting quarterback is dealing with an injury. He's questionable to be playing or not, Justin Herbert. So
Jay Herbie, as it were.
Yep. They are thinking that he's going to play on Sunday.
So is it even going to be a football team? Is it just going to be
there's a lot of injuries for the Chargers right now. There's a lot.
I didn't know anything about this. Very good.
So all that going on. Kansas City is probably favored by Vegas or whoever you want to look at, but they don't have any major injuries outside of Isaiah Pacheco, and that's their starting running back.
Okay.
But they've got a running back by committee deal going on in their team anyway. They've got they just signed a running back that
number 27.
Number 27. Yep.
But he's
Oh,
now
man.
29, I think,
Yeah,
right?
they changed his number.
Thank you, Gracey.
Mhm.
Gracie taught me that.
But yeah, they brought him back, Kareem Hunt, and they have that Carson Steele guy, he's a rookie, and they also have a pretty serviceable running back that's right behind Carson Steele. So between those three, they're going to be able to make up for Isaiah Pacheco. You've got Patrick Mahomes, he's the best quarterback in the league.
And the transiting moon is actually in the sign of Virgo, which is conjoining Patrick's sun. Moon, I find to be pretty supportive in general, and so it's supporting his overall expression, his ego, his identity, etc.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't looked like Patrick so far this year.
No.
So he's due for a big game.
Okay.
Travis Kelce has not been hitting his normal stats so far this year, so he's due for a big game too. I
It
think
might
that
be
it
his
might be a
game.
coming out party for
Yeah.
the Kansas City Chiefs is what I'm thinking.
Okay.
'Cause Chiefs versus Chargers, it's a rivalry game, it's a division game. I think that Kansas City's got the opportunity to come out and put it on them, to be honest with you.
Can I do a fun prediction?
Yeah.
I think that Kelsey's going to shine this game in particular because we were just talking about how he's a Libra and we're about to have a solar eclipse in the sign of Libra around 10 degrees.
Mhm.
So it would be like a good point for him to be like standing out in some special and exciting way.
Yes. That sounds right.
So what's your final guess?
I think Kansas City wins by 2 touchdowns. I
Two
think they're
touchdowns. What's the final score?
I'd say I'm gonna go 28-10. Kansas City.
28-10? That bad?
Yeah. A little bit more than 2 touchdowns. But just what Jim Harbaugh wants to do as a head coach for the Chargers, he's not going to be able to do this week because of all the injuries that are going on their roster. And Kansas City does not have those same issues. Andy Reid is a genius. He's going to outcoach Jim Harbaugh as a rookie head coach. And not rookie, he's coming back. He left the NFL, he's coming back. But this first year with the team. So I think that Kansas City is really gonna shine on Sunday.
I think that the Chiefs are going to win. And this is standing by the transit specifically. I think the Chiefs are going to win by 6 to 7 points. So either a couple of field goals or a touchdown.
Nice.
Does that make sense? Did I make that up?
No, that sounds great.
Go team. Yeah, but we'll see because the tarot cards. But again, who knows? I'm just trying to refine. I don't know what I'm doing. Any final thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, fears, panic, a sense of panic, excitement.
I want to see Travis Kelce have a good game. That's what I want to. I'm excited about that possibility.
Oh, do you have any wild predictions?
Wild predictions: Kareem Hunt comes in, scores a touchdown. He's been on his couch. Well, he's been staying in football shape, but he hasn't been on an NFL roster in a while. I think he's going to get a touchdown this weekend.
Love to hear it. Love to see it. Thank you all very much for being a part of. Again, this is the perfect sweet baby Aquarian who actually knows about sports. And I am Jess, who likes to play with the stars. And we will be back. Well, I will be back next week to talk more comprehensively. My final guess is the Chiefs based on transits. I will be tracking 2 charts for the Chargers, and then my tarot cards are like Chargers. So I don't know. And Trev says,
I think Chiefs are going to win, pulling away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, have a wonderful weekend, and hope you watch the game. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right, guys, welcome back in. My name is Gracey, and we just heard, I was listening along with you guys. We just heard from the illustrious Jess and her other half, Trevor, aka the Aquarius. If you guys are not following Jess on Instagram, it's Spicy Gemini Memes on Instagram. She is iconic. There's so much to say about just her sense of humor. But let's kind of brag about that insight. We've got a dual threat. I learned that Jim Harbaugh is now with the Chargers. For everyone that's watching that is from my past life of the sports show that I used to run called Sprots Takes. It was a play on words because people would always get really, really excited about sports and yell Sprots or type Sprots instead of sports when they were typing online. So that's where it came from. But if those of you that knew me through those years just heard me say, oh my God, I didn't know that Jim Harbaugh was at the Chargers. Mostly my sports media girls. If you guys just heard that, I deeply do not apologize, because that is who I am now, a person that is unaware of the reality of happenings and just tunes into the planets, because I just learned so much. If you guys didn't learn anything besides how I can move my necklace halfway across my shirt, ta-da, now you did. Jim Harbaugh is the head coach of the Chargers, and that makes for a really interesting play. Also, the Chargers have a lot of players missing, and there's some beef with a guy that is not going to be playing today because he's suspended, between him and Travis Kelce. So yeah, I absolutely agree with Jess. When I was looking at the game, very, very close game for sure. So since we are here to talk about astrology and not my personal opinions on how great that segment was, because it was great, we can look at today's chart. So yes, Jess brought up an excellent point, and an incredible Virgo follower of mine was tweeting about the Dodgers charts and working with those charts, as well as like trying to figure out the beginning times of things. I have also decided to start messing with times, and I'm currently working with the Chiefs chart being the first game that they ever played as a team, which would keep them with the Taurus moon but put them with a early Virgo degree sun, or go with the Chiefs being at their first home game in Kansas City, first time they ever played in Arrowhead Stadium in the regular NFL season. And that would give them the same birthday as the one and only Patrick Mahomes and the NFL. So I'm just like, what do I do? So I will be workshopping that with Jess. We did talk about that quite a bit on the back end of things in between. Like, once again, we are learning, growing, understanding this. If you guys want to follow one of the OGs of sports astrology, I mentioned her in one of my tweets today, or not today, this week. It's basically today. A week is basically a day. Virgo in Service, Andrea Malice. She is an incredible astrologer that has been working with teams and on air on ESPN and similar stations. Like, we both were on 95.7 The Game out in Oakland. I was out there talking to Rick Tittle, that has a show also on Sports Byline. So there was just a lot of really cool big things that happened last week, and of course I don't equate them to me showing up on the news or my magazine being published. I equate them to getting to talk to really, really, really cool women astrologers that have been paving the way and pioneering long before me. I really love what Jess and I are doing here, and yeah, I will brag about us, because it's like we both are taking a chance on one being wrong, which is unheard of for her Taurus placements and mine. What do you mean you want me to be wrong publicly about anything ever? It can literally crush you to be wrong and have Taurus placements. So if you have any Taurus placements and you understand this message, I'm glad you do, and I'm glad I'm not alone. It makes me feel a lot better. But we're also out here putting our face with our work and putting our real life human being personalities behind our work. And in a world of anonymous astrology and anonymous people yapping on the internet and basically talking sideways to us that are being brave enough to put all of this out there, as well as my biblical name being used in the news. It's like, oh boy, it's all there. It's a leap. It is a leap of courage. It is a leap of faith in yourself as well as your work. And it's something that I really think more people will start doing with the age of Aquarius. And the more that we see these people finding their voices and finding what drives them. Aquarius does rule the circulatory system and the calves. And I also think of it like Aquarius and Pisces are like the co-sharers of the ankles, because it's like such a funny little joint on our body. But Aquarius is so much about grounding yourself and finding your footing and finding your stability, whether that's your nervous system that aids in your circulatory system. So the nervous system being ruled by Gemini. It's just such a labor of love to share what you do and to share the things that you find fascinating. And even though some people might find it cringe, some people might find astrology as exciting as watching paint dry or as ridiculous as organized religion, I don't really care. You know, like whatever people feel about astrology is their own opinion and they get to carry that weight around. I like to view astrology as something that can be community building and cohesive in a way that like brings people together. And yes, I'm glad Alessia resonates with the being right as a Taurus rising. It's hard. It's really, really hard to put yourself out there. And like that's why I admire the hell out of people that do sports betting and sports media for a living, that do it from a place of just simply informed guessing, and they know that's it. It's like we don't have the insight of anything. We are just out here with the planets, and that's enough insight for me. Consulting the planets seems like a pretty awesome thing to consult for anything, let alone that. So let's look at the planets of the Chargers. I did get off on a rant about a little more than I expected, but it's because we're still growing this process. And when you look at the birth times for these teams, is a noon chart fitting? Should it be the first beginning of when that team debuted as a team in the public eye in the stadium they currently play in? Like we're working with a lot. So you might see me next week with a totally different chart, or just like we go on a really long breakdown of what Chiefs chart we want to start using. It's going to be a work in progress. So we're going to be looking at the Chargers chart for August 14th, 1959. If you were listening earlier to the live stream and heard Jess talk about how there is plenty of, you know, movement with those dates because we're looking at a lot of different variables, and according to multiple people, it could like be like the birth date of a chart could be completely different. Like it could be in the front office's eyes the moment that they signed the contract for the team to be final. And if you went on that, we'd have to like consult the owners, which honestly, it's not that difficult this day and age to reach out and like get an answer. So who knows? Jess and I might be continuing to work on our research. But I do want to mention, for those of you that watched Sunday Night Football last week, did you notice anything? Maybe I should go into the camera only screen. There we go. So we're not distracted by this chart. Did you guys notice anything about the Sunday Night Football broadcast? Because I certainly did. There was a video montage that they led into talking about how Patrick Mahomes has the capability of getting things done and pushing through a lot because he is a Virgo. And then they had like this like wizard voice and like psychic and then like terrible music in the background. It's like that written in the stars or whatever. And they did a whole astrology profile on what a Virgo is and what that means as an athlete. And I was just like, interesting. I had just done a news spot talking about how Virgos mean that he's very detail oriented, highly focused, and highly like driven. That's true. But I was just like, that's such interesting timing. So if you guys want to go back on my timeline, it is on Twitter or x.com/North Astrology. So check that out. There's a video. And if you didn't, you know, see it, maybe they'll do an astrological breakdown tonight too, but that was really funny. I laughed a lot about that. And going back to the game chart so we can focus. Just covered a lot. You know, we have a big game for the Libras, like we said. Trevor thinks it's going to be by the Chiefs by 2 touchdowns or more. Jess is thinking around 6 or 7 points. Number 42 stuck out to her. So we're going to go look at the Chargers and Chiefs game chart there, and we can see right where you kick off with that rising sign. We have the Chargers' alleged moon. We can't think too much about that moon because the moon changes up to 6 degrees either way of that point. So we're not going to know if it's in Sagittarius, a late degree Sagittarius moon, or maybe a later degree Capricorn moon. But what is very loud there, if we are going with the August 14th, 1959 chart, is that Saturn retrograde is right there on the ascendant of today's game. So if anyone's going to have any sort of, we can test this. Like, honestly, We can do this as a team. We can test this energy as collective here. So if the Chargers have any sort of bone injuries, not mishaps, but like bone or skin injuries today, or anything along those lines, perhaps August 14th, 1959 is the correct date. We can kind of see with the Chiefs. I'll do the same thing with them if they have anything that is telling about their chart. So we'll also do that. I'm not wishing injuries on anybody. I'm just saying that if there's like anything minor or somebody that had a former bone or skin problem, maybe it's just somebody that's like really red today. We don't know. Maybe somebody has like a sunburn. That could literally be how it shows up. Not everything is like some gruesome injury. So I do want to like keep that in mind. Like I'm not just going to be like, hey guys, look out for this broken bone happening. Like that's terrible. One, I cannot stress this enough. I hate watching injuries where things come out of place or there's blood or anything. You would think Mars on my descendant, like blood, whatever, I'm fine with it. Grosses me out. I have tattoos, doesn't matter. I don't like needles. It makes no sense, but I don't have to. So there's that. But one thing that we can look at right here is, like I said, Saturn retrograde, exactly conjunct the rising. And this will be kind of telling of what today's game is all about. So I'm going to take a drink of water and mute myself. I was just subtweeting myself, I guess, that with my inability to mute myself in an earlier Zoom call. I was just like breathing heavily and, blowing my nose and didn't even think twice about it. And I was just like, wow, that's unpleasant. So I'm not doing that to you guys. You're welcome. There's a lot about the second house, Chiron and Aquarius there. Maybe somebody's calves are like what makes or breaks today's game for the Chargers. I always like to look at the side of medical astrology with the astrology just because we are looking at a team, a collective energy. And if this is a day that we are going to go with, it will show up here. Jess kind of covered the other side of things where it would have been like first game energy, which I think is really cool because if like we're going to do that, then it kind of gives us a better basis on like what we're going to use as the birth chart time. So I'm learning, like I said, just as much as you guys are. And then we see going into the third house that is ruled by Jupiter, we see that the Chargers south node is going to be very much conjunct that north node. So nodal reversal, if this is the chart that we are going to be using for the Chargers, could feel very much like a mental surge of sorts at the beginning, and then like kind of okay, well maybe I flamed myself out and I did too much too early with this. We're going to go see the Chiron in Aries sitting in the fourth house of the game chart. Nothing there directly with the Chargers as far as conjunction wise, but then directly opposing that, we see Juno Pallas in Libra as well as the MC. So that Chiron is on the IC of the game for today. So it's like maybe it's like past head injuries or past mental wounds against each other will be something that's like a thing. Who knows? Then we're going to be going into the fifth house. Once again, we're not seeing anything there with the Chargers, but directly across in the 11th house, which is the axis, the fifth house, 11th house axis. You are going to see Ceres as well as Jupiter. Do I know what I'm doing with the asteroids and sports astrology 100% yet? No. Am I learning? Yes. I feel like this is where nurture and teams rally around each other to show support. And having Jupiter in Scorpio conjunct the game's part of fortune, maybe there is some masculine energy that helps drive through the team for the Chargers and rallies around them and gets them hyped and going. They could have a personal hype man on the sides. They could have somebody that's injured giving them some wise words of wisdom in a transformative way with that Jupiter conjunct the part of fortune. Then we are going into the 6th house where there is Lilith, and the vertex doesn't really matter in this case because we don't have a time for this chart for the Chargers. So we are just looking at Lilith conjunct Jupiter. That could be, this sounds really strange, but since Gemini rules hands, lungs, like arms and nervous system, I kind of feel like Virgo and Gemini both rule nervous system energy. But I know that Gemini is probably closer with the nervous system. If anyone wants to chime in, I have no problem with being corrected on that one, but anything else, do not correct me on. I'm kidding. You can correct me if you dare. No, I'm going through my Mars opposition, so I just like to warn people at the moment, like I might be a little bit feisty if you correct me, or I might take a minute to process it, but I will always be open to the truth or a more accurate version of what I am saying. So I have no problem being, I guess, perceived and edited if needed. There we go. So when we look at that, like 6th house energy with Lilith and Jupiter, maybe it's because somebody's got their hands where they shouldn't, like hand things with the Chargers. That could also be more of a telling thing, like if there's something going on in the news, I don't know. So not really seeing anything super vital there, but Lilith does serve a lot of lessons through whatever sign she shows up in, and that could be Gemini, could be a trickster of the hands or mind hand connection. The 6th house is the physical body and what I call the sports charts. So 6th house is that physical action and house of service, and like how that shows up in your subconscious with the 12th house. That's the 6th house, 12th house axis. So yeah, very interesting. We go into the moon ruled 7th house. So 7th house, one-on-ones with the moon in Virgo. I'd like to say that this is going to feel super nitpicky. One-on-one, super, like, I don't know if Jim Harbaugh is going to have a complete conniption fit or what's going on here, but I just feel like one-on-ones are going to feel very critical, maybe hypersensitive to criticism, with that Virgo moon ruling the 7th house, and then also in turn that Mars. That's what the hardest part about Mars and Cancer is that every goddamn day the ruler of that Mars changes, because it's like Mars and Cancer. Cancer's ruled by the moon. So every day we get a new spicy version of anger, and that's like going on in the collective right now. So if you're tired, it's okay. We're going into the 8th house, which I like to look at, like I told Jess in the last episode or one before it. I can't remember because there's so many. That I like to look at the 8th house as Vegas, and sometimes this is gambling odds. Sometimes this is other people's money. Sometimes this is like how the refs fuck with you guys. I swear. Because it's just like, having that sun, if we're going to the Chargers, square Uranus in the 5th house, we are looking at possibly the Chargers' ego being destroyed by the refs or switched up constantly by the refs. So that's just an observation that could be happening. That is something that could be a way that we can see if the Chargers really get bamboozled by the refs today. That'll be one indicator that maybe this chart is onto something and we can use it. But that's once again something that Jess and I will be keeping track of versus you guys needing to. But yeah, that is kind of strange with the Sun and Uranus conjunction. The Uranus and Uranus loosely square each other with the Chargers in today's game. Uranus retrograde is what today's game is featuring. So that's pretty cool. That being in the 8th house with the Pluto directly conjunct today's moon. Jess is 100% right when she was mentioning that these transits with the moon are very personal and they do show up quite loudly in game charts. So it'll be interesting to see if this is the chart we are using for the Chargers, and if we don't revamp this, like the one that just used was from 1960, so Pluto's not going to be that much further different than today. So we are going to see, regardless whether it's the 1959 chart or if it's the 1960 chart that Jess had for, I believe, what is the first game that they played together as a team. we are going to still see Pluto around today's moon. So it's not going to be that much different. What is going to be interesting is the Venus retrograde conjunct Mars, conjunct Vesta, with the North Node loosely conjunct the South Node of today. And that kind of seems like, even though that is in the 9th house of the game, that is also where the travel team will be. So the tri-wheel will be really interesting to look at with that one. Then we are looking at the Venus ruled MC, like we were talking about with the game earlier when we were looking at the game chart. We can see that the Venus ruled MC is going to play a large part today in the game, with Venus and Scorpio conjunct Neptune and Scorpio for the Chargers. Once again, if it is a 1960 chart, it is not going to be that much different with Neptune there. Neptune will in fact be, unless it's like retrograde for all of the beginning of 1960, then Neptune would be closer to that Venus. But with Pallas and Juno there on the MC, we are going to be seeing very much like leg power, warrior energy from the Chargers. They're not going to go quietly. You know, when I was looking at the game as it's just as a game, as a chart, it did seem like the game was going to be a little bit less stressful. And so I'm like, yeah, guys, this isn't going to be close. And then Jess is like, no, I do think this is going to be pretty much. And like she mentioned the kickers, Libra ruling the lower back and the butt and upper leg area, and then Sagittarius ruling the glutes and legs as well. It's kind of like this fun mix of Libra and Sagittarius, but Sagittarius is also very loud in that 12th house there, just ruling the 12th house of the game. With the only placement in Sagittarius that is Pallas right now. Like I said, I'm not a pro with asteroids in the sports astrology charts yet, but we are learning with that. So I'm not quite sure how that will be. But I do feel like there's going to be some fun showings today just in public. This would be a great day for a certain Scorpio rising or a certain Scorpio Venus Mars duo to have a great showing. You know, it is LA, it is the city of stars, so who knows who's going to show up today. That is very much feels like transformative, like I don't know, like very transformative dark feminine energy for some reason. All right, moving on into that Scorpio ruled, aka Mars ruled 11th house. Once again, Mars is in Cancer. That moon ruled Mars is so fickle. So we'll see how the teams go today. I feel like it's going to be highly emotional. That's just my rivalry, and knowing the Chiefs and Chargers rivalry well enough to be like, yeah, I could say that it's going to be pretty physical. A lot of like ego battles with the Chargers, especially since they are a Leo sun, and that is technically squaring that Jupiter of the Chargers, so they might have a little bit of authority or father issues in that chart. If that was your natal chart, you never know. But going into that 11th house, like I said, Mars ruled, Mars in Cancer, and the moon is in Virgo. Gut health, I said last week, like something about somebody getting sick. Gut health and that gut health balance, as well as the hypersensitivity and hypercritical kind of like axis of that Virgo moon, it can be directed towards anyone. Like no one's safe. And with that moon today in Virgo trine the rising, as well as trine Saturn retrograde for the Chargers, it is quite the spicy feeling, and it could just be watch your mouth, watch your words kind of reflecting your actions. And if somebody gets into verbal conflict and runs their mouth a little too much, that could also be another indicator that the Chargers chart should be the 1959, 1960. We just have to figure out which one exactly, because those placements would once again be around the same place. So I think it's kind of cool to see those game markers. Let's go on to the Chiefs game How long have I been yapping for? Like an hour? Yeah, something like that. Going into the game for the Chiefs, like you can see the difference. The reason I wanted to switch over is because we're going into an empty 12th house. We had already kind of covered all that. I want to show how the Cancer Mars is going to show up for the Chiefs today. If we are using this chart with the May 22nd, 1963, it's the announcement date. We would also have to have it would be, I believe, I need to figure out like when the first game was played at I think it was 1972. September 1972 was when the first game was played at Arrowhead. So we might have to like adjust that. So yeah, like honestly, the Chiefs chart could look totally different because it would go from Gemini to Virgo. But very interesting that it would be ruled by like two different Mercury signs. So could be a Gemini sun ruled by Mercury, or it could be a Virgo sun ruled by also Mercury. So just have to kind of adjust things when we figure that one out. But for now, we are going to be looking at the Chiefs game chart from May 22nd, 1963, that 12 p.m. public figure birth date time. Like if you're looking at any public figure's chart, if you're looking at anybody's chart that you don't know the time to, a lot of people use the sunrise because it's like newspaper publishing time, 6 a.m. for things they don't know the time of, or like event headlines. Or people use the noon chart just because it usually gives the sun's at the highest point in the sky, so it's usually like 10th house sun energy. So just have to see which one is which. And here we have the Chiefs on the outer ring. I just like talked way too much about how charts are set up, and I'm like not even explaining it, so I will focus. So like I said, the Chiefs are a Gemini sun with this chart. It is pretty fun to see the Capricorn rising and then our south node right there in the first house. This is going to feel like we've done this before because the Chiefs have done this before so much. The Chargers are a team that we have had a long rivalry. There we go. I don't know why I was going to say rivalhood. That makes no sense. The Chargers are a team that we've had a long history with. That is a term that uses a lot less letters that I have problems with. And they're fun. It's always a fun matchup. They bring the noise. Sounds like they bring the injuries this week. So it'll be interesting to kind of see this play out because the Chiefs feel comfortable here and they go off. You never know. The Chiefs' 22-degree Saturn is in that second house where Saturn retrograde is currently at the very tail end of. Yes, the Chiefs got lucky with that Chiron separating, being in the third house versus the second, directly on top of Saturn retrograde. I feel like that is only a fine line that is separating them. It's not like, things are magically changed and the Chiefs are magically absolved from the lessons in feet. It is a mental foot game for them today versus a lesson in feet. I did mention that I would pull up the Kareem Hunt chart, and I need to go do that real quick. I'm going to pull up. I know I tweeted the chart earlier this week, so I'm going to make sure I have it. Yep. And I can add it here onto OBS because I am basically a streaming fucking professional now. I don't know why I felt the need to cuss. I'm sorry. It's just sometimes it comes out. I try to keep it as PG as possible just for people who don't enjoy random American cuss words thrown in there. I could do international, but I feel like that would just do a disgrace or disservice to other people's languages. So with this game chart, we will be looking at Kareem Hunt's chart here in a minute. I just want to pull it up because I feel like we talked about so much of the Chiefs Pisces Chiron journey. And I feel like Kareem Hunt is a huge part of that, as well as like some other key people. So anyways, going on to the third house, we have Neptune and the North Node in the game chart today, where Pisces Chiron and Aries Jupiter are on either side of those. I will slow myself down and you will actually be able to understand me. Strange concept. So it's kind of like being sandwiched in there. They've got at the beginning of the third house, they've got this like feeling of inadequacy, or they could easily be like, oh, everyone is picking on me, everyone hates me. It's very much easily victimhood mentality. And then on the end of the third house, you have Jupiter and Aries, which is a lot more of finding that childlike joy and finding like the reasons why you love the game. That's very much what I feel like the Chiefs, Jupiter, and Aries shows up as. Once again, if this changes due to our process and system changing, I'm not 100% sold on the Jupiter and Aries because we haven't had the best luck when it comes to having that childlike joy, I guess. And so it's like having those moments where you have the Chiron in Aries retrograde, getting closer to that Chiefs Jupiter with the North Node right there. I kind of feel like we're being pulled into that childlike joy more so than anything else. So it'd be interesting to see what the other charts are looking like for the Chiefs. But then as you go into the fourth house, which is ruled by Mars, once again, with that Mars today in Cancer and ruled by the moon, we are going to see home team with Chiron and Aries. And then you have that Taurus Venus of the Chiefs. I do like the Taurus Venus for the Chiefs being in the fourth house just because the MC being ruled by Venus. And then having Venus in the Mars ruled house for today's game kind of feels like a little bit of an advantage there. So I'm super excited to see how that plays out for the Chiefs. Once again, I am learning just as much as I am sharing my process with you guys. When Jess is on here, it kind of gives a more even balance of like how we look at things. And I love having, the ability to have her like phone in for this one because our energy preservation is key. We are both Taurus Venuses. So it's interesting to see how a Taurus Venus shows up in a sports chart, seeing how Taurus does rule the throat and that vocal side of things. So the Chiefs could be very vocal today. That could be something that we see here. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Venus ruled fifth house, where Chiefs Mercury retrograde conjunct their exalted moon, and their sun is all right there with Uranus, which, yay, that's going to be fun with the refs maybe in our favor, but also when you have that many luminaries as well as Mercury retrograde in a house of gambling, hobbies, lovers, but in the sports world, I put referees in the fifth house and 11th house axis. We'll see how this goes because it could just be a moment in time where we're just like, what in the world is happening here? Are the Chiefs getting all these calls? Are the Chargers kind of like taking advantage of the ref situation? Who knows? Like I said, the Chargers have their sun in Leo at 21 degrees. So then we go up into the sixth house that's ruled by Mercury. Chiefs don't have anything there, but they do have their North Node in Cancer conjunct Mars loosely, which is cool. Since the Chargers don't have anything there in that seventh house really to mess with that, they just have Saturn opposing in Capricorn with that Mars. I feel like that Chiefs magnetism they might be connecting more as a team. They might be more supportive. The side of a Virgo moon that I didn't talk about because I just talked about the hypercritical, hypersensitive part of Virgo energy. The Virgo moon is very good about when it's at its best. It's like communication, nurture through communication, and to have the moon in Virgo ruling over the Chiefs North Node, it's pretty cool to see that. Also, the Chiefs have an exalted moon that could technically be ruling over that North Node as well. So both are pretty solid, as well as the moon today with their Pluto. So that's going to be an interesting watch for sure. When we look at the Chiefs chart from the 1972 time frame, it could be a little bit different. It is a little bit different. I don't mean it could be. It is different. And it's a little bit more conducive to where they are now. So I can't wait to have that discussion with Jess offline, and then we're going to be coming back with some more information and kind of like switching things up a little bit and showing you guys both. So maybe we'll make a big switch. I don't know. Anything during eclipse season, like Jess said, we are in eclipse window. We got a new moon popping out today. There's new moon. That's not like a new moon, like a new moon cycle. There's a literal asteroid just chilling in the moon orb. I'm not sure the proper term. Not the astronomer, the astrologer here. Dr. Jess did a great job on Spicy Gemini Astrology on IG, kind of breaking that down. So if you're curious, be sure to check that out. So yeah, today's crazy. Today's super moon charged. So Jess said in her prediction that moon world placements are going to be going off quite a bit. So yeah, I really do see this coming down toe to toe. The moon being around the Chiefs Pluto, as well as the Chargers Pluto, is very telling about the transformation that's going to happen with both of those. And the Chiefs and the Chargers having Pluto synastry is going to be wild. Let's look at the tri-wheel here so we can get to the fun prediction part, just because I will be pulling up Kareem Hunt's chart to look at, because why not? The tri-wheel. Okay, this is what people know as the tell-all of sports and just really event and relationship astrology in general. Jess earlier had the quad wheel. I don't have that at the moment pulled up, so I cannot show you the magic of the quad wheel, but this is the magic of the tri-wheel, where we have the inner wheel, today's game, Kansas City at the Chargers, and then we have the Chargers in that middle wheel. Once again, I wish that you guys could see my little cursor going around and showing you guys all this, but unfortunately that's not the case. I'll get some sort of like app or install thing for that, but there's a lot of energy here in the first house. So we're just going to go from first house to 12th house and cover what I haven't covered already. And while I do think the Chiefs are going to be winning today, and I do think it's going to be by 7 to 10 points, I think the Chargers are going to come out and show off quite a bit. They're at home. They are with injury, apparently. I didn't know that until I listened to Trevor and Jess do their segment. They have some odds stacked against them. So that's from the physical reality of things. But from the planetary side of things, Jess is correct. The Chiefs do have a lot more powerful energy when it comes to one-on-one combat. And as somebody with Mars on their descendant, which means I have Mars directly opposing my ascendant almost exactly, I am familiar with hand-to-hand combat, not in a sense of going and fighting strangers, but more or less going, tit for tat with things and being able to keep up on my own. I was a speech champion, had a speech impediment, but then turned out to use that to my advantage because I thought about everything I said to the point where it was like, you don't need to have a playbook for a conversation. And I'm like, maybe I do. But it turns out that I would just be really great at speech and debate. So I have no problem with the back and forth. I have no problem deciphering when things are going to be like that. I feel like today is going to be more emotional on the side of the Chargers. They're going to show their frustration a lot more. Their Chiron backing up to the Chiefs Saturn in the second house. Not feeling great there. Chiron retrograde conjunct Saturn. Theirs is at the Aries degree of 25, and the Saturn for the Chiefs is at 22 degrees, which is the Capricorn degree, the 22 kill or be killed degree. So it's really interesting to see the Chiron synastry there, and then with the Chiefs having their Chiron conjunct today's Saturn retrograde, it could definitely feel like karmic rewards being gifted. Some certain players that we will talk about after this tri-wheel that will stick out for me. One to look for is Kareem Hunt. And we're just going to look at his astrology because everyone else is going to share his story and his what he's got a redemption story going on. And we love a good Pisces redemption story, especially with Pisces. containing both Neptune and Saturn. Redemption is key, as well as revelations. There are revelations being unearthed about many people, many false idols, many people that have been hiding who they are versus people who have been fixing who they are. And Kareem Hunt definitely falls under the fixed and the healing stages of life. And it's not so much fixed as there is something broken or wrong with him. It's just simply when you're in a sport like NFL football and it's professional football and you are considered a role model in the community, you know, you got to get it together and you can't have these problems. And the Chiefs have no problem swiftly cutting people. So that's another reason that I'm like, I think their Saturn is very much 22 degrees Aquarius. They have no problem cutting personnel if it doesn't fit their morals and values. But then we go into, like I said, the third house, and we can get back to that. The Chargers alleged chart from the August 14th, 1959 date with the South Node in Aries there, doing the nodal reversal, conjunct the today's North Node in Aries at 6 degrees. The Chiefs have Jupiter there, and that could be blind luck, blind faith, where they believe a little too heavily in themselves. But I do feel like having Chiron and Jupiter in the same third house there is going to give them a little bit more of a balanced mental transformation, especially with going into the second half. So once again, the Chiefs are such a great second half team. So I am incredibly biased. I am born and raised in Kansas City. If you are just now realizing that, then we have some more things to worry about. But if you're just popping in, my name is Gracey. I am with Northern Astrology, and you could be watching this live stream or recap on YouTube or Twitter. I greatly appreciate you being here. And my other half, Dr. Jess, is out of office today on family leave, and it's so exciting to be able to just like babble to myself because I do that anyways. So why not do it on camera in front of the world? We have the fourth house kicking off, like I said, with that Mars ruled fourth house from before, because it is the game chart. The Chiefs having Venus in there, the Chargers not having anything major in there that I have pulled up. There could be asteroids or who knows what could be in there. But the Chiron for the game at 21 degrees is going to be the Sagittarius degree. So it's less likely of that heavy impact head injury stuff that we were talking about from the last couple games. So I think the Chiefs do have a little bit of a boost with that steady, stable energy that they're going to be bringing to this game. Going into the fifth house of creativity and fun, as well as referees and the balance between authority versus like individual authority versus team authority. We do see Uranus there for, and I say Uranus, I change the pronunciation every other time, so just bear with me there. In the fifth house, and Uranus is the sudden change and upheaval and revolution and rebellion placement in a chart, and that could be the upheaval and rebellion in refereeing. It could be in the fans and the stands, who knows, but very much some sort of subtle chaos going on in today's game, whether it's with the officiating or with the fan bases. But with the Chiefs, Mercury retrograde conjunct their moon and sun in that fifth house, I feel like they will be shining, whether it's people saying that we get all the calls or that we got hosed. Either way, I do see the Chiefs emerging victorious with that, being Venus ruled and Venus and Scorpio just right across there. It's just nice to have that Venus opposition going on. I feel like it brings out the best and worst of both worlds, with the Chiefs having it in Taurus and then Venus being in Scorpio. Very much could be balancing out their past like dark taboo off-screen actions today. So once again, we can get into the Kareem Hunt thing, seeing how he was a pretty controversial player when we let him go. He had some pretty serious issues that I covered in last week's episode. So going into the moon ruled or the Mercury ruled sixth house, we don't see anything major there for the Chiefs, although their sun is in Gemini, and Mercury ruled sun kind of gives them a little boost. We're going to be seeing a lot of hands features. I know that football is literally played through the hands. I'm aware of that. But like when I said that the last time when we played Cincinnati, literally the opening play, the guy was like fumbling around the ball with his hands and it looked like chaos. He ended up like holding on to it, but it just looked ridiculous at the beginning. So who knows? Going into the moon ruled 7th house, which I was trying to get to before I even got to the 6th house. We, like I said, the magnetism and the charisma, or the Riz, I guess, is 100% on the Chiefs with that North Node and Mars right there. You know, they also have a pretty solid opposition with Pluto going on with that North Node, and the South Node is conjoining Pluto in that 1st house. So it's going to feel familiar to them. They're going to feel like this is no big deal. It's just another road game. But it is an in-division rivalry, and the AFC West, when they were San Diego Chargers. See, I haven't said San Diego this whole time. Haven't said it. I can do it now. When they were the San Diego Chargers, it was intense then. It's going to be intense in LA. You know, the Chargers having their sun and Uranus conjunction with the Chiefs Mars. It's pretty fun. I feel like it's going to be a tit for tat game, but it's like only for a little while. It's only going to be like that for a little while, and then the Chiefs are going to be able to have some breathing room for sure. The Chiefs and Chargers have that Uranus, Pluto energy going on, both in Virgo, and like, well, the Chiefs have it both in Virgo, and then the Chargers have Pluto there in Virgo, as well as their Venus and Mars. So that could definitely slow down Patrick's already been slowed down quite a bit. So if the Chargers really mess with him here, it'll be interesting to see, because so much of that Virgo energy with the Chargers, with both Venus and Mars and Vesta right there with Pluto. So it'll be really interesting to see the intensity of today's game and see how Patrick performs. This could feel like home for him with a Virgo moon. This could be boosting him quite a bit and just feeling like he's maybe finally feeling like himself again. Who knows? These West Coast games could be like a thing. We are in the midst of Mahomes's Mercury return, so that's kind of cool to see. That will be conjunct the South Node and today's Sun, so who knows how that's feeling for him, whether that's lighting him up with familiar energy or kind of dragging him down. We'll see. But this South Node transit is not going to feel like all easy breezy beautiful for Patrick. You know, he has an early, I think it's a 1 degree Libra Mercury, so it's an Aries degree Libra Mercury, so it's like very much the more the South Node gets closer to his Mercury, I feel like we're going to see a different version of Patrick after this. The South Node will then start going closer to his Sun. So when there are ways to say that, you know, with like the South Node, of course, there are ways to say that, you know, there's going to be a hindrance for his energy. It's also a revisiting energy where he was 18 years ago. So he's 29 years old, so he's like 11 then. I don't think that that's going to be something that we're really too worried about. But personally, it could be something behind closed doors that he's working through. Who knows? A lot of the things that we see with South Node conjunct Sun, and then also conjunct Mercury, it's like a revisiting of past mindsets, past thought patterns, past things, communication patterns that you could be stuck in. You could be looping, or not cycling, but definitely looping in, and you don't even realize it. So it could be a large revisiting of some sort of funky pattern for not only the Chiefs and Chargers, but also Mahomes. That's just my 2 cents, my insight there. But that 8th house is pretty loud. We're going to see a lot of heat, and a lot, since it's ruled by the Sun. And the Sun today is in Libra. We're going to see a lot of people trying to be the peacemakers, a lot of people being the mediators successfully, and then people just getting in the way. So a lot of high masculine energy coursing through everyone's veins, yet the women being a little bit of the center stage could be interesting to watch for sure. With the, if you guys missed it, I did a little bit of a degree breakdown, the Sabian symbols for today's chart ruler, which is Saturn at 14 degrees retrograde in Pisces. So with that being said, going into that Venus ruled MC for today's chart, I think it's pretty telling. I think it's pretty telling that it is going to be a very women-centric game. Whatever high-profile women will be at the game, who knows? Just because I know that I am talking 100 miles a minute here, I will indulge my Pisces Mercury and continue with my cannabis push for this morning. Mostly because we are getting into the 11th and 12th house territory. The 11th house ruled by Scorpio, which is another sign that benefits a lot from cannabis. Everyone benefits from cannabis, let's be real, if used properly. Going into that Mars ruled 11th house, like I said, it's going to be pretty fueled back and forth and pretty heated between the teams. The rivalry is real. It's very loud. But with that 11th house having just the Chargers Jupiter in there, it could be a little bit of a push in their favor, a little bit of a boost. I'm not sure how sustainable that is. Once again, with the Mars ruled by the moon today, with Mars and Cancer. But the 12th house, which is the home of Pisces, the home of escapism, the home of dissociating, is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is going to be in that 6th house ruled by Gemini today. So I'm excited to see where this kind of goes, without any planets for the game or the Chargers or the Chiefs using these specific charts. I do think the game is going to be a less stressful, more like if you're betting today's game, I say it's going to be probably more stressful for you than it is for everyone that's just watching the game for fun and for their own enjoyment. But seeing how this all works out, I just want to look at the chart that I just pulled. So I'm going to do that real quick because I am so good at adding things on OBS now. Maybe I am. Who knows? Okay, maybe it's on the desktop. That could have been. Yep, there it is. I knew it would be there. Okay, so this is Kareem Hunt. We have been talking about his chart online a little bit. If you follow me on Twitter, cool. I don't know why that I needed to be cool. That's where I do a lot of my yapping, just because it is the platform that I've been using since like 2009, and regardless of who owns it, I just continue to do my thing. My new account is a lot more fun and a lot more me for the first time versus like focusing on being a brand or being a certain way with like how I convey things or how I do things. I'm very much less corporate media trained these days than I used to be. Smoking on camera would have been basically a fireable offense back in those times. So we talked about the Chiefs and the Chargers not having any like 12th house presence here, but guess who does? Kareem Hunt is going to be, I believe, active for today's game, which is a great start because Kareem Hunt has had one hell of a journey with the Chiefs. And if you don't know the full story, I talked about it last week. You can go through when we talk about Chiron and Pisces. And I really shared a lot about how the Chiefs have struggled with addiction, substance issues, and also with people that have very loud personalities or stand up for themselves in ways that were probably not conducive to being a public role model. And that's all I can say on that. But when there's a redemption story involved, I like to follow along with it because, love a good underdog. But with Kareem Hunt, there's just been a myriad of things that have been from his time. The last time he played, I believe, was playing in LA. I can't remember if it was against the Chargers or the Rams, but he had an issue the 2018 season. I believe it was 2018, yeah. And the Chiefs cut him, let him go. Turns out there's some pretty wild stuff going on video, and the Chiefs were not going to have any of that. They are very conservative family organization, so it's very much they try to get ahead of those things. Tyreek Hill was somebody that they had dealt with a lot of like public pushback on at the time because of his domestic violence history, which later turned out to be something that the media got a hold of and like ran with and edited some audio in a way that made Tyreek look guilty when he wasn't, and it's just a lot of stuff. But the whole point is that there's been a lot of like ups and downs and forgiveness with the Chiefs. So seeing Kareem Hunt's chart, it is a noon chart. I would love to have his birth time, not for, to know what's happening in his life, tit for tat. But it's like, I think it's cool for research purposes to be able to see that. But without a birth time, we still have plenty of information here, simply because the moon could not have gone back further than 8 degrees. So the moon would still be in the 12th house, and it could not go further than 0 degrees Capricorn. So it would, 100% be in the 12th house. So Kareem Hunt's moon would be in Sagittarius in that 12th house, because I talked about the Chiefs not having anything there and the Chargers not having anything there. But then we go over to today's moon, and you see the moon in the 8th house. And the squaring moon is quite interesting. So today could be a building block of emotions. It could be a spiritual building block for Kareem Hunt. His sun and Venus conjunction there in the 8th house. That is the house of odds and Vegas. So if you guys are betting on him, there's definitely something there. The 29-degree Pluto in the first house of today's game. 29 is the new number for Kareem's jersey, I believe. Yes, it's not I believe. I know. And so he really has some planetary boosts there with Capricorn and Uranus retrograde, Neptune and Uranus retrograde in the sign of Capricorn conjunct that Pluto. So it's almost like rewriting the past, personalized history with those placements falling in the first house of today's game. This is a very personal rewriting of sorts for Kareem Hunt. Whether or not he gets a ton of playing time is really up to coaches, not me. But astrologically speaking here, it does look like he has quite a bit of presence at today's game. He is currently going through a Saturn return, which I mentioned online. And that is in the sign of Pisces. So we're experiencing that Saturn retrograde energy for him today in the 3rd house, and that's going to be in the mental house of communication and everything else. So he's going to feel like he's at home, I feel like, mentally here. I feel like his feet are going to be flying. He's going to feel spiritually lifted. I feel like he's going to feel supported. I feel like he's going to feel the love around him. The redemption story is loud here with his 29-degree south node and north node both squaring Pluto. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up, is just like, look at that. Like, how much louder can you get? And then if you add in the Chiefs north node in Cancer at that 21 degrees, that is a grand cross. That is a grand cardinal cross with north node in Libra at 29 degrees, Pluto and Capricorn at 29 degrees, south node in Aries at 29 degrees, and then that north node in Cancer at 21 degrees. So very much, I'm not going to say faded as much as I will, not necessarily boosted, but like the gifts from other realms are going to be very loud for Kareem Hunt today. And I feel like this is going to be a huge healing time for him. And for those that aren't familiar with dealing with people that have addiction or substance issues mixed in with, a public downfall of sorts, it doesn't bode well. Like when you have people that are naturally already hard on themselves and kind of go through escapism. And Sagittarius moons, as much as they are brilliant, quick-witted, and very gregarious, energetic feeling beings, they can also be very harsh on themselves, and they can also specialize in emotional escapism. And so a lot of the times when we see redemption stories revolving cardinal energy, especially that grand cardinal cross I was talking about with the North Node, South Node, Pluto, and the Chief's North Node, and honestly, today's Mars could fit into there too. You know, we're talking about stories of people that we're going to see some large impact from over the next, like, you know, few months. I feel like from September to March is going to be a totally different person for Kareem Hunt. So when Pluto shifts back into Aquarius in November, end of November, things might feel a little bit quieter for Kareem, but that's okay. I think having an impact or being able to show stability is more important than having some rocket setting, jet setting, insane career for Kareem straight out of the gate. I do feel like this Leo energy, we are going to see Mars retrograde kind of around his Venus area, go into where his Lilith will be almost to his Lilith. I think Mars retrograde starts around 6 degrees Leo, I can't remember, and then goes back to 17 degrees Cancer. We'll all know very, very much closer to December. It is a strong energy that Leo and Aquarius placements and really fixed signs in general and late cardinal degree signs, anything from, like, I'd say 17, 18 degrees to 29 degrees in a cardinal sign is going to be very much affected by Mars retrograde. We're going to see a lot of men, especially men that have been up to no good, men that have been not using their sacred masculinity for positive things. One that's unrelated to Kareem Hunt whatsoever or to football is Joel Osteen. That is a man that has a lot of placements that I feel like are going to be up for collection of sorts. With this Mars retrograde, which will coincide with a Pluto opposition. That's pretty wild. So we're going to be feeling the effects of Pluto fully dipping into Aquarius very much through the end of the year. And, you know, with Kareem's chart, you know, there's a lot of great stuff in Leo, and I think there's a lot of things in Leo that could be revisited and kind of like clarified and almost like saged. I feel like the toxic masculine energy that we can all carry with us with our Leo placements can be just as much the toxic feminine energy that you find in the Venus placements. And so it's like today will be a very strong indicator of where Kareem Hunt is, with Pluto squaring his nodes, as well as Mars helping form that grand cardinal cross and the Chief's North Node as well. So it'll be interesting to see his career in the coming months, weeks, whatever you want to call it. The NFL season is in full swing. You know, my other half does reaction videos for the other NFL teams that other people have to watch, I guess. I only watch the Chiefs. That is the only thing that I am glued to. That's the only thing that I really care about watching week after week. But I love sports astrology in general. So it's been really fun to work with everybody and like see how these things are going and watch other people kind of like form their opinions through their own work, help other people find how they can do sports astrology best. There's just a lot of things that I'm really grateful for. So once again, I do have the Chiefs winning. I can probably pull up that tri-wheel again and you guys can see it. I do have the Chiefs winning by 7 to 10 points. Jess has them winning by 6 to 7 points. Trevor, the special guest, aka the Aquarius from Jess's social media platform of choice, like IG, she like the Aquarius is well known. So if you guys know Jess from Instagram, you guys definitely are familiar with Trevor. Trevor picked the Chiefs to win 28 to 10, so over 2 touchdowns. I do see some strong numbers being 0 today. 0, 18 with that 18 degree MC, as well as that 29. I'm gonna go ahead and give that one to Kareem Hunt. 29 is gonna be a factor today. Just mentioned 42, so you've got plenty of time if you want to like look up the research of those. The zeros are gonna be huge. 18. The 29, the 42, And then, you know what? Just because I want Trent McDuffie to have a great day today, I'm going to say the 22 as well. So, some of the 70s numbers that get up there are kind of like replicants of the numbers in the 20s. Like if we wanted to look at number 75 for tripling that Chiefs 25-degree Taurus moon, we easily could. 74, 76 are loud numbers on the Chiefs as well. So, a lot of those numbers are things that you have to like do more into like the numerology side and combining that with your intuition. So we don't always do those, but we do have the signs of Libra being quite loud today. I know we keep talking about Libra, but it's been very difficult to see Libra energy of Travis Kelce shining, but all other Libras have been doing well. Cancer with Harrison Butker, as well as Cancer placements in general, getting that boost from Mars in Cancer. And I know that we talked about the Venusian ruled placements, so Libras and Tauruses would also fall into that place. And I'm going to throw a hot one out there and say Leos as well. Leos, Virgos are going to be popping off as always, just because that's what they do. It's Mercury ruled anything. Virgos are going to show up and be like, hello, we are here to compete. Leos are definitely going to be in prime time today with that vertex in the 8th house of the game being at 11 degrees Leo. So I'm super excited. I hope you guys have had fun with this. I'm going to zoom out to this camera only exit scene is what I have it labeled as. It's been really fun. This has been a great show. I feel like we are wrapping up right around 2 hours. We have plenty of time to get to the games. I'm sure there's other games going on right now. Who cares? No, I it's not that I'm like completely and totally unable to watch other teams play, but it's like when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, like other teams are not going to be as exciting to watch. Like you want me to watch the Panthers? You want me to watch the Raiders? Okay, the Raiders might not be as terrible, but let's like the Panthers I definitely know are. But like I just can't get into it, so that's why I follow along a team that I do love. So my accountability of wanting to talk about sports astrology every week is going to be best centered around a team that I love. And the San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers, there we go. They're a good team. They've got some hiccups going on, according to Trevor, with injuries, and they have a hiccup going on with a Harbaugh as a front office member and a head coach. Oh man. But like other than that, I feel like the Chiefs are going in here with a sense of kind of like continuing this presence of being undefeated. It's very much loud for the Chiefs with this game. I do see them winning, like I said, 7 to 10 points. We'll see how that goes. And I'm looking forward to your guys' predictions. I'm looking forward to your guys' interactions. And I think it's important to have those because how else do we learn and grow as a sports astrology community unless we're actually all in on that? So if you have no idea what I've been saying this whole time, you and my mother are probably in good company. My mom loves watching me talk. She doesn't really know what I'm saying 100% of the astrology, but she does her best to follow along. If you're finding yourself in that kind of category, please feel free to check out my online library of free astrology resources. I am getting a website update and a revamp happening in the next few months, and I'm super excited about that because I need it desperately. But for now, you can just go to my library on my northernastrology.com. Once again, that is northernastrology.com. And you can check out all of my workbooks. I have a Venus synodic cycle workbook. I have a Astrology 101 workbook. I have three free issues of a magazine out so far. The winter solstice will be the 4th and final of the year, which I'm super excited about. And we have a huge jam-packed lineup for the winter solstice thing. In fact, if you're expecting an email from me regarding your winter solstice contribution to the Northern magazine, I will be getting back to you in the next week because I will be sitting and doing all sorts of errands and being very busy this week. And then it's like October opens up and I can create. So I hope you guys are having an amazing wrap up to the end of September. We are going into October, further into Libra season, further into the balancing of energies and alignment within ourselves. So I hope that you are preserving your energy wisely and that you are spending your Sunday doing something for yourself, as Sunday is ruled by the sun, and that is our self and our ego and just our overall shine. So please do something great for yourself, Self-Care Sunday, or do something that you would enjoy later in the week. So like look out for your future self this lovely Sunday. So wherever you are joining us in the world, thank you so much. On behalf of Dr. Jess, aka Spicy Gemini Babe, thank you for joining us. And you can go back in the live stream if you are interested, and you can go back and check out our full predictions, including Jess's special guest, Trevor the Aquarius, that joined us live today. So once again, my name is Gracey with Northern Astrology, and I'm so glad you stopped by today to talk about sports and astrology, my two favorite things.